Hello and welcome to Modern SMS Tech Tips and Tricks. This is a webinar brought to you today by OTB Solutions. We are your presenters today. I'm Kristen Von Hahn, and Dick Federle will be the main presenter. Before we get started, I want to just run you through a few things about the logistics of this webinar. So we don't expect that the runtime will go over 25 minutes. We think it'll be about 25 minutes. You're actually on mute. We'll be using the Q&A on the right side of your screen to ask questions, and there will be some poll questions that we'll be sending along as we're doing the webinar, where we can see where you guys are in the process. And after our webinar, we'll have a link to a very short survey, a 3-minute survey, where we'll be checking in on your SMS readiness and where you are in the process of getting ready for the FTA transit rule coming up in July. So now I'd like to introduce you to Dick.
Thanks, Kristen. So where I kind of wanted to start was talking a little bit about SMS. I know that all of the folks who are in attendance today have a kind of a good foundation, but I kind of want to do some level setting and then kind of talk about how technology can influence and help with your safety culture. And then after those kind of brief topics, really kind of get into the meat of our presentation around technology and kind of some of the things we think you should look for and some of the things that can frankly make your life easier as you go down your journey of designing and implementing your PTASP. We also wanted to present a really quick case study of some of the work that we've done around this area and how we've seen it help with outcomes of this kind of work. And then touch on some ideas on how you can get there in terms of your implementation of an SMS system. You know, really, as agencies are beginning their SMS journey, they're taking stock of their existing processes, their policies, and their technologies. And as a rule, most agencies are finding them deficient to one degree or another. You know, generally, we're finding that these processes are either undefined or ad hoc or sometimes not even in existence. They're inefficient because they rely on emails and a bunch of face-to-face communication, people going out to shared drives or hard drives to go find the content that they need, or a bunch of large paper binders that are sitting on shelves tend to be centrally located, not very accessible. Also, these processes tend to be siloed into one department or maybe between a couple of departments, but rarely are those processes really enterprise-wide. And as all of the above implies, they're really resource intensive and highly manual processes. You know, SMS is complex. There's a lot of moving parts and critically reliant on the cultural adoption of safety being part of every job, of every process. This complicates matters even more. So how you can pull the scattered processes, people, and documentation together into an effective system is a really critical consideration as you move forward. That's what we're going to discuss today, how you can leverage technology in your SMS journey. In some cases, technology that you already own. So really, when we look at this and understand why we think this is critical, we need to kind of take a step back and look at some of the reasons a systems approach to safety management is so important. Ultimately, it's about 3 pillars of your organization, none of which you can do without. It's about the safety of your ridership, the safety of the community, and of the employees of the agency. A systems approach drives you in a different direction than a traditional safety planning approach. With a systems approach, you specifically look for commonalities, root causes, and how other processes within the organization can impact safety adversely or otherwise. Not only that, a systems approach is about understanding the drivers of safety, what the key metrics are that reflect the success or the lack thereof of the mitigations and the strategy you've put in place to reduce or hopefully eliminate safety incidences entirely. In this regard, we view safety and security as tightly coupled, if not actually synonymous. It can't be over-communicated that this isn't about compliance. It really is about adopting that culture of safety. You know, ultimately, you have a number of things at stake, but at the core is the safety of the 3 pillars to which we just referred. So before I go on, I'm going to hand it over to Kristen, and she's going to ask a polling question.
So what is your planned approach to meeting the first FTA deadline in July 2019? Are you planning on using internal resources, new hire, external resources, meaning contractors or vendors, or are you undecided? So let's see what people have to say. And we're getting some answers. It looks like most people are planning on using internal resources, so with a few people undecided. So that's about 70% planning on using internal resources.
Cool. You know, that's not all that different from what we've seen in some of our other surveys, but it is interesting that there is a very heavy reliance on internal resources. And that can be challenging since people have to do their own jobs or their original jobs at the same time. Thanks, Kristen.
Absolutely.
So, you know, if you look at all of the things that you have to do for a successful implementation of an SMS, it can really be daunting. You know, but a well-designed solution leveraging technology should provide a way for you to reduce the overall labor costs, to define your processes in a standard way, and to have compliance just fall out effortlessly out of those processes. It should also very much provide transparency as well as scalability as your organization grows and as you roll out your SMS plan. And really, it should provide a consistent, structured, and searchable set of documentation. So when people need to find things, either about something that's happened or about what they should be doing, it should be easy to do. And above all of the data that you're presenting to the people within your organization and outside of your organization should be actionable. And we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail. But really, when you look at this, you would think overall that you'd want as much technology enabling your SMS as you can. But really, it's a little bit more complex than that. You need to keep in mind how sustainable the technology choices you make will be in the future, and also how much you can accomplish out of the gate versus over time. You know, one size really does not fit all. You need to account for all of the things listed on the slide, as well as having an understanding of where your organization is currently. You really do need to put this into the context of the culture of your organization. You know, besides convincing people that safety is as much their concern as it is a priority for the agency, making it easy for them to participate is just as important. And in the case of self-reporting, they have to be convinced that it isn't used for retribution. You know, obviously, if something's wrong and it's happened, it has to be corrected. But the core value of a self-reporting system is that it's used. To reach that goal, the system must be easy to use, ubiquitous, and very much trusted by the organization. Other places where technology can support your SMS efforts include certification processes, incident reporting, inspections, automated notification, and other kinds of self-serve resources, but also workflow and documented records management. In some of our earlier webinars, we had asked participants to complete a survey. I'd like to go through some of those results that I wanted to highlight for you. Also, if you'd like to, all of the results, you'll find those available in the handouts provided with this webinar.
And if I can interject here, Dick,
Please.
some people who are listening to this recording may not have access to the handouts. So at the very last slide, we'll have an email. If you'd like to receive the full survey report, just email us and we're happy to send that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, you know, when we look at the results of the surveys that we've taken to date or given to date, most agencies are using technology, but about 80% of them are really only using email. 3/4 of the agencies don't have reports and dashboards that can connect to data from multiple sources. And fewer than 50% of the agencies are really confident in the accuracy and completion of their agency safety metrics. You know, this is really telling. It's a critical aspect to your implementation of an effective safety management system that you know what's going on, where things are, and how they all interrelate. So we think this is a really telling piece of information. But you know, there really are better ways. Really, the key takeaway that I wanted to stress here is that many of the agencies with which we work already have technologies deployed which can significantly ease the deployment and adoption of safety management systems. Okay, With all of that out of the way, I wanted to pass along some of the tips that we've been referring to, and to see if these can ease your journey to an implementation of your SMS. So the first one really is you have to get buy-in. It's hard to understress or to overstress this particular item. Not only do you need executive support, but we strongly encourage you to involve IT from the beginning and make sure that you have an adequate budget, not only for the implementation of the SMS, but all of its supporting technologies. So before we go on to some of our next tips and tricks, I wanted to ask another polling question. Kristen?
So we were wondering, to what extent have you involved IT resources in your current SMS planning? Is that not at all, to some extent, or extensively? So we'll let people answer here. And it looks like most people are saying to some extent, and a couple people not at all. No one has said extensively.
That's interesting. That's not all that different from what we've seen in some of our other webinars. But one of the things that we would encourage you all to do, particularly those who haven't involved IT yet at all, to consider involving them early so they can participate in the planning process and help you understand some of the things that they may already have in place, some of the things that they're planning to do, and also to understand what kinds of gaps can be closed by technology as you go through your implementation of an SMS system. So one of the things that we wanted to stress is, if you can only do one thing, invest in a good document repository. When you look at the graphic that's up on the slide right now, we've put a lot of thought into how the pillars and the components relate to one another. And it strikes us that thinking in terms of pillars or silos really does underserve the importance of documentation and records, and specifically how that component can be a central component to the success of the entire rollout of your SMS. If you invest in a good one, what you get will make sure that employees' lives are easier. It's easy to find documentation you need. It's easy to track changes in version history, to tag documents with the metadata that you need, and to enforce your records retention policies. And it really should connect to your SMS systems and processes as well as your other systems and processes. What's the risk if this isn't done right? Well, pretty much it's, file shares don't scale. So turning around and having documents out there in some file folder structure really won't be good enough. There have been studies that say that, when you make people jump out of the way that they work normally, you make them save files to their hard drives and then upload them to some document management system, or have them double click through a whole bunch of file folder hierarchies that's more than 3 clicks deep. Compliance drops below 10%. That's a massive risk, not only to the compliance aspect and the associated adoption of your SMS processes, but also, since it underpins everything about your SMS, it's a bit like a house of cards. If this doesn't work, you're at risk for everything not working, or at least not working well. It's really hard to underestimate the value of having a workflow-assisted business process. Not only can you do all of the things listed on the left side of the slide, but by getting compliance for free, if you will, because everyone is following the process that you've designed because it's automated, you also can switch from a culture of compliance to one of collaboration. And that's a really valuable thing to have, where people don't need to worry about, am I doing the right thing at the right time? Do I have the right information? Because the workflow is automated, all of those things are taken care of, and they can focus at the task at hand rather than the task of making sure that they're compliant. So we wanted to ask another polling question. Kristen?
So what is the level of automation that your organization is striving for with SMS? Is it none, low, high, or you're not sure? Yeah, our little play our do. Looks like we've got a mix of answers here. Most people are saying high. There's a couple not sures and a few lows. So it's really 50% high and a mix of not sure and low for the rest.
Oh, that's really good to hear. Kind of the combination of workflow and leveraging technology and an underpinning of a document management system that's easy to use and integrates well with the way that people do work, we think is really critical to your adoption and deployment of your safety management system. I mentioned this a little bit earlier that you wanted to make sure that data was actionable, and so I want to go into that in a little bit more detail. We see in our practice generally, and not limited to transit, a tendency to look at all of the data that's available across all of the internal systems, and even more so today than ever before, data from external systems as well to which you have access, all mashed up into a dashboard that is pages long, full of pretty little graphics, and seemingly it provides lots of information. However, what we found is that most of it isn't actionable and may not be telling a coherent story. We think that you should flip that design process around. Rather than starting with the data you have, start with the actions and behaviors you're trying to get people who look at your dashboards to take. Once you know what you want them to do, you can determine what kind of information you have to give them that would support those kinds of decisions and actions on their part. With all of that information, you can look at the data that you have, and just as importantly, the data that you're missing, and design a dashboard that imparts a meaningful message to the audience that you're targeting. Critical to this as well is to make the dashboards actionable. Just like with the document management system, the more clicks you make a person take to do what they need to do, the less likely they are to do it. If I have to go out to an org chart and figure out who's responsible for addressing something that I need to have done, and then look up their email address in Active Directory, and then type the email address into my email, I'm really likely not to do all of that work. In short, it's really important for you to have a plan for how you will use your data. Give staff all of the data they need to make decisions and no more. Use visualizations of your data to make it more consumable, not just pretty. And understand what the data can and cannot tell you, but always strive to make that data actionable. Okay, next I wanted to talk about an actual case study that we have with a transit agency that we've been working with. So the transit agency that we were working with had been managing all of the hazards and security risks that they had in a really kind of a disorganized and time-intensive process. They were using Excel spreadsheets to manage things. They had SharePoint, but it was disconnected from their spreadsheets. They were tagging documents, and they were moving things around through emails. And when it was time to go through the triennial audit or whatever kind of a process audit they happened to be doing at the time, it was really challenging for them to find the specific documentation about a hazard and where it was and who did what when. So we worked with them to build a solution on top of SharePoint where we would automatically tag documents with the information from the hazard that we were working with. We would use workflow to route those items for review and approval. And we'd attached all of their related documentation to their review at that particular point in time and allowed them to keep track of any particular item status through a dashboard. What this allowed them to do was it allowed their safety department to scale to about 15 times its current volume of projects being managed with the same number of resources in the department. It really allowed them to scale with a massive build-out project or set of projects that's going on right now in their system. Without this, not only would they have had to increase their staff, but it's likely that they really wouldn't be able to manage all of the different levels of certification and safety management that they need to do for the construction that they're undergoing right now. So really, how do you get there? You've got a lot of different pieces to keep track of to get to your goal of a safety management system. But the FTA has recognized that one size does not fit all. In this case, it also applies to your selection of technology or multiple technologies to support your SMS efforts. However, it can be boiled down to really a binary choice, at least at the outside. Do you buy a platform and configure it to your needs, or do you buy a solution and change your business processes to conform to the package requirements? It's not always quite that stark of a comparison because most commercially available off-the-shelf solutions are configurable to one degree or another. But to a large extent, if you buy a solution, you will need to adapt to its approach. If you buy a platform, it should be adaptable to your requirements. But if you buy a platform, we really want to stress a couple of the following characteristics that it should have. Ultimately, at its core, it should support a no-code configuration process. It should support an agile methodology, not waterfall. So you shouldn't have to have all of your requirements up front and completely understand everything that you need to do from the very beginning before you do any configuration. You should be able to build it to the use cases. So you don't impose it from above, but get buy-in from the actual users and be able to launch those particular configurations, those workflows, those forms, and learn from them and understand that you're not going to get it completely right or the way that you want it going forward forever. And it really should be focused on your ability to self-serve. You shouldn't have to have a high-powered developer to come in and configure this system for you. The other option is buying a package, but you need to make sure that the package you buy is right-sized to your agency. You also need to understand whether or not it can integrate easily with your existing systems. And do you need some sort of a hybrid solution where it's doing piece parts of your SMS execution plan and other systems are doing others, or can it be a standalone end-to-end management process for your entire SMS work? And you also need to decide on, do you get best of breed and buy multiple solutions, or do you buy an integrated end-to-end package? These are some of the considerations that you need to keep in mind as you're going on your SMS journey and understanding which pieces of technology you want to have in place. Really what I wanted to close with is that we can help you through with this process as well as a bunch of others. At our core, we are a business management consulting services firm, and we can help you with the services listed on the left, as well as more broadly business process optimization and automation and other kinds of services. So we can help you get there, but we can also help you do a bunch of other things, and we'd be happy to talk to you about those. So with that, I'd like to hand it back over to Kristen to see if we have any questions out there.
Great, thanks, Dick. So you guys can, as a reminder, you can ask questions in the Q&A panel there. So, okay, yeah. So we do have a question. What is the software that you used for automation in the case study?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So we used a number of technologies in that solution, and I mentioned some on the slide. One was SharePoint. And one of the other significant pieces, specifically on the automation side, was a product that's called AgilePoint. It's a highly configurable platform. It definitely complies with kind of our guidance in terms of no code, agile, very much supports that launch and learn kind of approach to development and deploying. But there are other platforms out there. There are a number of reasons that we think this one is robust and really good for an enterprise, but you may already have tools that you own that can service your needs just as well. And there are also other tools out there that kind of play in the same space. But we and actually Gartner, an IT analyst firm, agree that AgilePoint is a leader both in terms of the thought leadership, but also in their ability to deliver. So if you're looking at workflow automation, we would definitely encourage you to include AgilePoint in that, as well as some of the others.
Great, thanks, Dick.
Sure.
And there's another question here. What all do you help with in SMS implementation?
We kind of touched on that on the prior slide. So we have a set of service offerings that start all the way from the initial gap analysis, which we would strongly encourage you all to, if you haven't started that already, it being almost, or it is March right now, that you really do start that soon, all the way through the PTASP development and implementation, both of the processes and adoption throughout your organization, and the underlying technologies that are related to that. And also you can see on the slide that we do have several areas of expertise around safety and security and other kinds of processes related to SMS that we have a fair amount of expertise and experience in.
Great, thanks, Dick.
You're quite welcome.
We'd love to have a conversation with you. So be sure to, give us a call. You can reach Dick or myself at either of these phone numbers, and we look forward to hearing from you if you have something that we can help you with. So thanks for attending.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.